Okay, welcome everyone. I'm sure we'll have a few more people joining us, but we'll kick off gently and welcome people as they arrive. So welcome everyone to the Keeping It Wild Youth Accelerator Fund Showcase event this evening, this Thursday the 10th of December, just in case no one knew what the day was. We're really excited to have you all joining us, our rather large panel as well this evening. As I'm not sure if you're familiar with, we're doing this Zoom webinar style, so you can see ourselves on the panel, but we can't see you. However, we can see your interactions in the chat box and in the Q&A box, so do feel free to interact with them as we go on. The panel will be fielding your questions in your chats. So you might see that it's recording, but don't worry, that's just recording ourselves and our presentation. You won't be recorded at all. And that's just so that we can then put this on YouTube for those that couldn't attend live with us tonight. So I will kick off. So yeah, just all that housekeeping I think I've done. So we'll just run through the event timetable, do a few introductions, and then kick off with the main information. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague Bobby to run you through the timetable.
Hello, welcome everybody. We're going to start at 6:10 with the project overview, and Violet's going to talk to us about the Youth Accelerator Fund project and also the Keeping It Well project, and tell you a bit about those and the interesting stuff that the young people got up to. At 6:20, Nikita is going to talk to you about the workshops and training placements that she was part of and give you a timeline experience of that. And then at 6:25, Lubna is going to talk about her personal experience as a trainee and skills that she learned over her time with us. And then at 6:30, the campaigns that the trainees made are going to be revealed. So each group is going to talk to you about the brief that they were working to and show you the ideas that they come up with. We're going to then have a 15-minute break, and then after the break we're going to come back and get to see the amazing results of the campaigns and see what ones did really well. And then we're going to have a career Q&A at 7:15 with our panel of industry professionals with the questions that you sent in. So we're going to do some introductions now.
Brilliant, thank you, Bobby. So we'll just go round because I'm sure you can see all your faces and you're wondering who we all are. So hello, I'm Violet. I'm the Keeping It Wild Communications Officer for the London Wildlife Trust. And I'll hand over to Bobby.
Hi, I'm Bobby. I'm the project assistant for Keeping It Well project at London Wildlife Trust as well. And I'll hand over to Emily.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Morshouse and I'm the Keeping It Well project manager at London Wildlife Trust. Hand over to Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Mason. I'm the head of marketing and comms at London Wildlife Trust, and I would be handing over to Zahra, but I'm not totally sure she's here, so maybe I'll skip over to Richard, unless Zahra's hiding somewhere. Don't think she is. I think it's Richard.
Hi everybody, I am Richard from Open. This is Lady Penelope, who's decided now is the time to come and sit on my desk. And I'll hand over to my lovely colleague Sarah.
Hi everyone, Sarah. I'm a senior account manager at Open.
Okay, and on to our trainees and digital workshop participants. So kicking off with Lubna.
It would help if I was unmute. Hello, I'm Lubna, and I was obviously one of the trainees at the Keeping It Wild workshops.
Hi.
And Jason.
I'm Jason, and I was also one of the trainees.
Hi, I'm Jamie, and I'm also a fellow trainee. Now to Nikita.
Hi, I'm Nikita, and I was also a trainee. Handing over to Eva.
Hi, my name's Eva, and I was part of the digital media and marketing workshop.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background about Keep It Wild and the Youth Accelerator Fund project in a very quick nutshell, just in case you're wondering what's going on, what this project is all about, and you've kind of come to us quite fresh. So we'll keep this very brief. But yeah, so Keeping It Wild is a 3-year programme funded by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. with an aim to engage underrepresented young people in the sector in nature conservation in London. The project started in 2018, so we're kind of coming to a close now. So I really hope that you've seen elements of the project so far in your various experiences. But anyway, if not, here's a little flavour of it for you today. So the Youth Accelerator Fund element of the project came about and it was set up by the Department for Culture, Media and Sport to address urgent needs in the youth sector to expand existing successful projects run by a range of organisations, including the National Lottery Heritage Fund's Kick the Dust programme projects, of which Keep It Wild is one of. The fund's key aim is that activities that are youth-led, where young people are involved in the development and selection of activities. So our objectives with this project and with this funding are to ensure that young people involved are skilled and equipped to earn and learn, to inspire them in the field of digital marketing, and to help influence London Wildlife Trust's communication strategy with the content and the expertise and experience that the young people are bringing to the table. And the way that we brought this all together into a project was we created a journey or a pathway for young people who are involved to travel down. So that all started with workshops and then led on to work experience. And I won't tell you any more about that because Nikita and fellow trainees are going to tell you in way more detail. But yeah, that's just a little bit of flavour and kind of how we've got to this point. So I'm now going to hand over to, oh no, I'm not. I'm actually going to tell you about our different organisations. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, wanting to hand over to Nikita. So London Wildlife Trust, there's a few of us here today, including myself. So London Wildlife Trust is the only charity with a real aim, with an aim of protecting London's wildlife and wild places. And our aim is to create a London alive with nature where everyone can experience and enjoy wildlife. Open, you'll see two representatives from Open here today, is a strategic and creative agency with the idea of bringing the right people together to change the world. And Headliners, Zahra will be joining us later on, is a charity who believes that young people have the right to be heard. They empower them to express themselves and tell their stories and change their lives through a range of different programs. And what's really exciting about this project is we've brought together our three partners from slightly different spheres to bring together all our different expertise and experience to create this really exciting project and learn and share with each other our knowledge to help create a really effective and valuable offer for young people in London. So I will now hand over to Nikita to tell you a little bit more about the workshops and training placements and her experience. So over to you, Nikita.
Thanks, Violet. So my experience as a trainee started with the digital media and marketing workshops, and this took place across the course of a weekend in October. And it was a really good and engaging introduction to digital media and marketing. And we learned a lot about the creative process in fundraising and marketing and those steps that are taken once receiving a brief from a client. As part of this, we were put into small groups and we drafted out some rough examples of a set of Instagram stories that could be used to promote London Wildlife Trust. And after this, we had the opportunity to apply for a 4-day paid training placement. And here we worked on a real fundraising campaign for London Wildlife Trust to help boost membership. Our tasks were to create Facebook ads as well as writing email and landing page copy. So our first day was our induction, and we met the team at Open and we got put into smaller groups. Here we discussed the brief and planned our initial ideas. On day 2, we developed these ideas and we met with our client, London Wildlife Trust, and we presented our initial 4 concepts. And with their feedback, each of our teams had 2 ads to develop properly. On day 3, we created our campaign visuals and copy. And on day 4, our final day, we completed the campaign and prepared for it going live. We got to see and understand the process of uploading ads onto Facebook and how to target them. Throughout the placement, we had the opportunity to speak about careers with the staff at Open, learning more about the different areas that we could work in, such as client services, digital marketing, copywriting, and design. And we were also able to hear from HR, which was really valuable as we were given lots of job application advice. So now we're going to play some videos from the trainees that we made each day of the placement.
Hi, I'm Andrew and I'm currently on the Keeping It Wild Digital Media and Marketing Training Placement. So far, we've already met all of the wonderful people at Open who are helping us this week and teaching us all sorts of interesting things about marketing, as well as everyone at London Wildlife Trust, who have given us a rather interesting task of raising some funds for the brilliant wildlife that we've got in London. It's been great learning, and I'm sure there's still a lot yet to come. But it's about time that we knuckle down and get working on this before we miss our deadline. But before we do that, I have to say I've been rather tired out by all of this video calling, so I think I might head off to bed.
I'm Jamie, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our team's third day on the Keeping It Wild Digital Media and Marketing Training Placement. After a hectic Wednesday, today we started by making some changes to our first drafts. We got some really useful feedback, and with a few hours of work and some help along the way, we ended up with 2 adverts we were really proud of. With our adverts most of the way there, we then started on writing the copy for our landing page and welcome email. The short deadline was pretty daunting, but we made a plan, got to work, and made quick progress. And again, with some guidance from the beautiful team at Open, we finished up with something we were really happy with. I've really learned a lot these past few days, and while I'm looking forward to our final day and presenting our finished adverts, I'm definitely going to miss my team and all the awesome people at Open who have been showing us the ropes.
Hello, I'm Nikita and I'm on the Keeping It Wild Digital Media and Marketing Training Placement with Open and London Wildlife Trust. It is our 4th and final day on the placement, and it's really great to see all of the creative ideas from all the teams finally being pieced together, and we're really happy with the work that we've done. This morning we worked on finalising our ads, emails and landing pages for the London Wildlife Trust campaign. We've been actioning a lot of really helpful feedback and suggestions from the team at Open, as well as from our client presentations that we did yesterday. It has definitely been a really challenging week, but I've really enjoyed working with my team and I've learnt so much from our few days with Open.
We have finished. We've gone through the final day of the traineeship. Throughout this week, we had to come up with loads of ideas for our adverts, and each group has landed on 2. I'm really happy with the 2 that my group ended up with. We're really proud of them, and they have been finalized. They've gone through many iterations, loads of editing, and they've been polished, and they are squeaky clean, and they're ready to go. And we've even made a landing page, the website that it will take you to if you click on that advert, and a thank you email for if you go through the whole process and sign up. So yeah, if you've got Facebook, keep an eye out. Maybe you'll see them.
I hope you guys enjoyed my fellow colleagues' videos. I hope it gives you a sense of what we went through throughout the week. I really enjoyed my experience with this training placement. I had never had digital marketing experience before, and I felt like this whole entire process was a great introduction into the different positions available within the sphere of digital marketing. And I felt like I really benefited from hearing the individuals who worked at Open, who worked in those particular roles, to give me a better insight into how digital marketing works. The hardest part about the placement was coming up with more than one idea for our target audience and client needs in such a short time. We had basically a few hours to come up with a bunch of ideas that met the target audience and our clients' needs. But the most enjoyable part was seeing the whole project succeed from start to finish. I really feel like my skills in marketing have developed. I learned presentation skills, teamwork, especially teamwork online, especially through Zoom, which I think nobody would have figured we would be here, but we are. Copywriting skills, and even how to incorporate client feedback. And I really enjoyed the fact that we were in constant contact with everybody who worked at Open, and we were receiving both their feedback, but also their support. So so that was basically my experience. Now I'm going to just give you a brief explanation about the placement task that we were given. We were tasked with creating 2 Facebook ad campaigns for each ask. And an ask is basically a brief or a marketing idea. Our target audience was a woman in her mid-20s to late 30s who was also a mom, and she was an urbanite, born and bred in London. We called this particular individual Laura. So when you hear us explain our campaigns, we'll be referring to our target audience as Laura, and she embodies this individual. We'll begin with Jason and Nikita, who will first explain their ad campaign.
Thank you, Lubna. So for this campaign, we were split up into smaller groups. I was put in a group with Nikita, and for our brief, we were given the brief of asking our target audience to help us to keep London wild for future generations. So straight away, what came to our mind is, all right, we're targeting this Laura character. She probably has kids. We need to have pictures of young children, maybe a mother and her child, maybe a child in nature, enjoying the wonders around them. So that's what we had going on. And we had to come up with 2 adverts that convey this message. So for our first advert, we had the concept of helping us to keep nature alive and real for the future. We came up with this line, what if butterflies only existed in picture books? And that kind of really just drove the rest of the advert. The rest of the advert just kind of wrote itself, really. We just wanted to really convey this theme of all of the wonderful things that we get to experience today. They should be able to last, and they should just help us keep it alive. And it doesn't have to be a myth, a legend. It can be something that the future get to experience for themselves as well. So that was really our first advert. And then we just had to have we came up with a variety of pictures. The first one is a young girl just with a butterfly. So we hope that straight away that the audience would get it. And then the other 2 pictures are just, it's a cute robin and very colorful nature. So hopefully it conveyed that message. And for our second advert, I'll pass it on to Nikita.
Thanks, Jason. So for this one, we called it Nature Sparks Imagination, and we had a fairy tale vision for this idea, and we really wanted to show the value of nature for children and how nature can inspire that creativity. So we went for this playful idea of having some childlike illustrations beside the children in these pictures. We thought that'd be quite eye-catching, so we have the frog on the toadstool and a dragon. And we really wanted to promote the idea of going out to these wild places, taking your children to these reserves. And this was our attempt at being a little bit less emotive and a little bit more playful with the brief. So now we're going to hear Open's thoughts on our ads.
Thanks, Nikita. So yeah, some brilliant work there. So with the Keep It Real route, the first one you saw, one of the reasons I love this is it does everything. It does kids, it does wildlife, it does habitat. And actually using the carousel format was a really great way to bring that to life. I also really love how you've got some threat in there, everything's not okay, but it's not depressing. There's something you can do about it. Even in your visual choices, it's very upbeat and positive, almost thumb stopping as you're looking through Facebook. So that's some of the things I love for Keep It Real. With Nature Sparks Imagination, the first thing I have to say is I loved visuals. And these visuals are not something Open put together. Nikita, these are your illustrations, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, their own team, put these together without a lot of support from us. This ad here was probably everyone's pick for what would be the most successful. And I'll let the guys talk through some results a little bit later. But there's a great idea, and actually it's carried through not only in the words but in the visuals as well. It's universal, it's super cute. Real focus on children that we thought would be a really good route to go down, with Laura being a mother, so that child focus throughout it we thought was super and brief. And it's new and fresh for London Wildlife Trust as well. This isn't the kind of content London Wildlife Trust put out there. A lot of this kind of visual style, so really brave from London Wildlife Trust to run with it as well. So that's just some of my thoughts on this first group's work.
Okay, so Team 2's ask was protect your neighbours, and this brief was based on our audience's love for animals and the increased importance we've seen on local communities in these COVID times. And it's this idea of considering our neighbours in nature in the same way that we may consider our human natures, and think of them in the same way, needing the same care that our human neighbours need. Next slide, please. Okay, so our first idea was about offering the chance to be a better neighbour. So this was really focusing in on this idea of, thinking of animals as a neighbour, and we really liked how this gave it a more relatable spin, we thought. It just, makes it a bit more relatable, and continuing with this idea, we thought it'd be a good idea to illustrate different scenarios of animals struggling to cope with the same issues that we may deal with as humans if you're unlucky enough to live next to a bad neighbour. We thought a good way to do this would be through using speech bubbles. Thought it would get the point across well, and it could also help lighten the tone and help inject some humour into an otherwise not so happy subject. Although when pitching our first draft of this, London Wildlife Trust weren't entirely sure about the speech bubble idea. This is mainly due to traditionally not wanting to anthropomorphise animals. However, after some careful consideration, they decided it would be an interesting angle to experiment with, and we were given the creative freedom to do so. It was pretty exciting. And we were really happy with the result. And our second idea, next slide, please. So our second idea was about the favours we often do for neighbours, and all the favours local wildlife offers us, often without even realising. So just some of the things wildlife and its animals do for us include pest control with foxes, or pollination with bees, or just the huge mental health benefits I'm sure a lot of you would have realised over this COVID time. And we actually found a study that found a direct correlation between the biodiversity of an area and the happiness of the people living there. And so with all this in mind, if a human neighbour was to do any of these favours for you, we'd like to think that you'd want to return the favour. So yes, we hoped this idea would resonate with our audience and would convince them to become a member. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Big shout out to your team, who I think are in the audience as well, Ruby and April. I think I've spied on the attendees list. So some more great work here. If we thought Nature Sparks Imagination was a brave choice for London Wildlife Trust, Speaking Animals definitely was. But again, really, really great, strong visuals, really good standout, not only for London Wildlife Trust, but against competitors as well. So I love that on this first route. It's super fun. Like, so much of what we do in fundraising is very serious and very worthy. So I love that you guys came up with a really fun route for this too. Visuals stand out, and you've put the animals front and center, which I think we all thought was always going to be a winner. People love cute animals, and you really made the most of it. With your return the favor, this one actually we ran as a slideshow rather than a carousel. It's a little video that we made in Facebook, so a slightly different format. I love how you had kind of a responsibility on the audience for this. It was a very, very different take on the proposition to your first ask, you know, that fact that actually maybe we all owe something back to nature, I thought was a really interesting message to test. The other thing I really love about this route is how rooted in 2020 it is. Like, it's very current. I think it was speaking to a lot of people's lived experiences over the last few months.
Great. So we obviously had fantastic campaigns. I was group 3, and instead of presenting an ask, or rather asking our target audience for something, my group had the ad campaign of offering something to our audience. So we wanted to offer our audience this idea of escape on your doorstep. So we came up with 2 ideas that targeted this campaign. Our first idea is titled Time for You, Time for Them. And this idea focused on Laura as an individual and Laura as a mom. And we wanted to combine these 2 ideas together by demonstrating that Laura could escape to a different nature reserve and have time to herself with a cup of coffee, a little biscuit or a pastry, and she could just take a moment to reflect in nature and just have that moment to herself. But at the same time, Laura's also a mom, and Laura would want to bring her family and be part of that experience. And so we wanted to also present this idea of time for them. So this is where Laura could bring her family and create memories with her children by participating in activities that the London Wildlife Trust had to offer. What's important about these visuals is that these are all also taken from activities that the London Wildlife Trust had hosted in the past. And so these are real things that you can do with your family. We are offering something that is achievable. And for our copy, so the writing that's above these pictures, we focused on this idea of taking time away from the screen, which in 2020 has been a very prominent and has taken a very prominent role in our lives. And we were a little bit cheeky by saying that we wanted to have our audience to respond to the call of the wild. So we presented this idea of just returning and connecting to nature with your family to create these new memories. Our second idea is titled Find Your Secret Garden. And this is an idea that the London Wildlife Trust really liked. And in our feedback session, which was really, really positive, they told us that this was something that they had always wanted to capture in their marketing, but had struggled to kind of determine how they could convey this idea the best into an ad campaign. My favorite part about this campaign ad specifically is that we took a different route in the photos. So in my previous colleagues, their ad campaigns, and even the previous ad campaign I showed you, it's a lot of images that focus on people and on animals, but this particular ad campaign focused on actual nature itself. So no wildlife, just the nature. Or well, I guess there is a butterfly and a few ducks, but mainly a nature landscape. And these are all photos that come from reserves that the London Wildlife Trust manages. And they're really, really beautiful, and I think they do a great job capturing this idea of the secret garden. So we really wanted to demonstrate in this particular campaign this idea of an escape, of finding your own hidden oasis. And if you read our copy, it explores this idea of having your own personal sanctuary that's within minutes from your doorsteps. And we wanted to present this idea of this exclusive space that is still within your reach, which was very exciting. And I hope that we really captured that idea in our ad campaign.
You definitely did, Lubna. I should mention Andrew from your team is also in the audience this evening as well. So yeah, some more great work here. I think with that first ad, time for you, time for them, you really made the most of the fact your ask wasn't an ask, but an offer. You put those benefits to the supporter up front, which is a really great thing to do. I love there's a real human truth at the heart of it as well. You were really kind of in the mind of Laura and what as a mother she might be thinking and wanting, which I think makes it strong. And as you mentioned, I love how you actually brought some of the London Wildlife Trust sites to life. But actually in this first week, you did it with a real focus on people and kind of the human aspect of it and the human angle of it and what people could get from visiting London Wildlife Trust sites. For the second route, I've not got a lot to say because it's so great, but I think the word here really is beautiful. Like, you guys did a great job of finding the best photography available. And all these photos are London Wildlife Trust photos. There's nothing stock in here, and you really brought it to life This ad actually exists, the finished version has a slideshow rather than a carousel as well, and there's some beautiful kind of magical type that animates in over as well, giving a real kind of magical feel and really delivering on the idea, I think, the idea of a secret garden and a hidden oasis within the city.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Richard, and everyone for presenting those amazing campaigns. I think we'll all agree that there was a huge amount of creativity and wonderful to just see a whole range of ideas coming together, and well done to everyone who presented and everyone in the audience as well for your hard work on those campaigns. So we're just going to take a quick break now. So go stretch your legs, give your eyes a break from these screens, which are constantly glued to these days. And yeah, we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. So I make that about 35 minutes past.
Great, so it looks like everyone's coming back now. So we'll start off with the second part, which we'll be sharing the results of the campaigns. So I'm going to pass over to Jason to kick us off.
Hi. Yep. So yeah. So for the results of this, so for each group's 2 adverts, the one which performed worse in the first week, we stopped running that one for the first week. Just thought it would be worth mentioning. And so for my group, this was the advert which ended up performing better of the 2, which was it was quite a surprise to me actually, because I personally preferred the other one. I had high hopes for the other one, but this was the one which ended up performing a lot better, with it reaching over 133,000 people. More than 500 people clicked on it, and of those, 5 people went all the way and ended up purchasing a membership. So that gave us a conversion rate of just under 1%. And yeah, I don't know, what do you guys at Open think about this?
It was definitely the surprise result. I think we've got a couple of theories as to why maybe this one didn't perform. As I mentioned earlier, we thought those beautiful visuals of the second week might put it in the lead. One of our theories, which I think I mentioned in one of the positives, this ad has a bit more threat in it. You know, a threat to wildlife, a threat to animals, a threat to people's way of life, a bit more urgency, and maybe because of that, a bit more of a why now? Why should I give now? The second one was definitely the softer ask of the 2. Our second theory, which is maybe slightly controversial given the audience, we do wonder if the second ad was maybe slightly too parent focused. Obviously, you know, it's very child. Every slide I think has a child in it, and even though all of our kind of research and insight said Laura's probably a parent, as you can see here, like a lot of older audiences responded really well to this ad. So Jason, you may prefer the second ad, but you're not Laura, I'm afraid.
Yeah, we did think that like maybe Laura is a bit sick of seeing children-focused adverts all the time now. She just wants to do something for herself. You know, everything's revolving around the kids nowadays.
I think we'll find out the answer to that one on the third set of ads potentially.
I think the only thing that I was going to add as well is I remember the first time I saw some of these figures way, too many years ago, and it looks low, but actually these are really, really good results, and it's really good to see how well this did perform, even if it was our surprise.
So yeah, I think we're passing it on to Jamie's group.
Yep, so the most successful out of our 2 ads was the so it was the Let's Be Better Neighbours angle. It reached over 260,000 people, got almost 2,500 link clicks, 8 membership purchases for a bit of a low conversion rate at 0.33%. So it actually had the highest number of clicks out of all the adverts, with people engaging more of the light-hearted aspect. But yeah, unfortunately, it didn't manifest itself into as many membership purchases as we would have liked. People must have just been hungry for the cartoons rather than the memberships, perhaps. Who knows? Open, do you have any ideas as to why it would be?
I think an interesting thing on this, your kind of two ads together, actually the carousel, which is this route, outperformed the video. So we ran your second ad as the slideshow, and usually we see video outperform the more static creative, but actually the carousel here performed really well, which I think is pretty testament to how strong the visuals were. One thing we did, which I guess not everyone in the audience will know, we did one landing page and one back email for each offer. And because it had to work for both ads, the landing page you came to for this route didn't feature speaking animals, unfortunately. So I wonder potentially if you've got a lot of people clicking through kind of on this strong visual, and maybe they got to the landing page, maybe it didn't feel like quite a seamless journey for them. That's just a theory.
Right, yeah, that makes sense.
I guess similar maybe to the first route as well. It's it's quite light-hearted at this point. As we saw with the first guy's route, actually having an ask that was more kind of threat-led actually converted slightly better once you click through. But I think this is always kind of the balance we're paying off with. Like actually, getting more people to click through might not be the same ad that gets most conversions. So it's interesting here, like I think your numbers are a lot higher. You've got a lot more people clicking through, but a lower conversion rate. And those are kind of like the balances we're always playing with. Like, do we want more people to click through with less convert, or do we want fewer people to click through but have a higher conversion rate on that?
Right.
And I think when you think about what London Wildlife Trust might do next, I think there's definitely lots of learnings that you can take on board. And if you did want to run something that was more focused on engagement rather than the conversions at the end, we could look to this and say this style worked well there, and see the kind of what we can take forward from that as well. So lots of learnings across all of these, I'd say.
Yeah,
as well.
I think I'm real positive with running this route, because this was, of all 6 ads we ran, probably the most risky. I don't know if Laura wants to chip in, but the most risky, like brand wise, like it looked the most different from other pre-existing London Wildlife Trust creatives. So actually proving that actually there is an audience for it and an appetite for it is probably a useful learning in and of itself.
Cool. I think, yeah, if no one else, yeah, now it's on to group 3.
Yes.
Lubna.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, so our results for our campaign, the most successful one was Offer 3, which was our second campaign, Escape on Your Doorstep. We reached over 250,000 people and generated over 1,000 links, which meant that we had 16 memberships were purchased through this ad campaign with a conversion rate of 1.36, which was really excellent and had the highest membership conversion rate. And I think, as indicated on the screen, it shows that it resonated with our target audience. I think a reason this did really well was because I think it just spoke to a lot of people in general. It was very nature-based and aesthetically pleasing, and I think that kind of piqued everybody's interest. So even though we were targeting a specific audience, I do think that this campaign did resonate with a lot of people in general.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things on this route is actually this was your video creative of the two. So in this case, video outperformed static. So we have no learnings across all of the routes on format necessarily. I think an interesting thought on this potentially, if you compare it to the other offer creative, is that the focus on the benefits to the individual seems to have resonated more than the focus on benefits to the family, which probably plays out in group 1's findings as well. Actually, like focusing on family and kids hasn't performed as well as focusing on individuals.
So here are the overall results of the campaign. It's worth noting that the campaign is still running, so it's about halfway through. but so far it's generated 29 membership purchases, 4,137 link clicks, and the reach has been, a lot. And the ad on this slide was the most successful so far with the most conversions. So London Wildlife Trust are looking to rerun this next year too. And all the trainees were really pleased that our efforts have led to so many people engaging and signing up to become a member. Back to Violet.
Thanks very much, Nikita, and everyone. I hope everyone in the audience enjoyed seeing the results. And did you guess what the kind of winning campaign would be at this point? Interested to hear what everyone's thoughts are there on that. And yeah, I'm really excited to see the campaign continue. I received loads of campaigns served to me just as an individual. I think I fit the target group a little bit there in the age. So, but yeah, it was super exciting to see them coming through organically, all your hard work in reality. So now we've organised a question and answer session between headliners. Zahra is here now, I think, so we've got her, fantastic. We've got the guys from Open and a few of the team from London Wildlife Trust, and they're going to answer a few pre-sent in questions all around careers in the sector, to give you guys in the audience some kind of tips and tricks to get ahead and help you with your job and your future careers, and some kind of insights there. So we'll answer some pre-submitted questions, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So do pop some questions into the question and answer box, and we'll hopefully get to as many of them as we can. So I'm going to hand over to, I think it's Jason, to ask the first question to the panel.
Yep, thanks, Violet. So I've got the first question here sent in from April, and this is to Open and the London Wildlife Trust team. And the question is, what are the entry-level positions in marketing?
Shall I kick off? I can tell you about the creative entry-level positions. So you're looking at things like a junior designer, a junior writer. For these roles are very kind of craft heavy, so we'd probably be looking for some sort of a relevant qualification, certainly in design. That doesn't necessarily need to be a degree, but we'd need to see a portfolio and some evidence of kind of technical skills at work for those design roles. For the writing job, again, kind of a demonstration, and we'd call it a portfolio or a book, but and that could be real or speculative work. It doesn't need to be stuff you've actually done if you're struggling to find those first opportunities. But I think you'll find, and Laura might be able to expand on this from London Wildlife Trust side, but like a lot of general marketing roles, things like a marketing officer, a marketing assistant, they'd also present you with the opportunity to do writing as well. So that might be the type of role, if you're really interested in writing, to get into a kind of as an entry level. Like a lot of the writers that work at Open didn't actually study advertising or writing at all, and they came into it in a kind of a roundabout way through various marketing jobs or kind of fringe roles. So something like that might be a great kind of a way in if you're interested in the more creative side of things.
I think from kind of the client services side as well, what you said about a lot of people coming in roundabout ways, I think that's true as well. So it would depend from client services if you're looking to be kind of on the agency side of things or on the client side of things, and whether you were kind of going for commercial or third sector. But roles to be looking out for would be executive roles, so account exec, marketing exec, things like that. Marketing assistant, as Rich mentioned, is also a good entry point for client services. A lot of these roles would look for like a qualification, but not always, and definitely not necessarily in marketing. A lot of people in marketing didn't study marketing. And I also know kind of some people in client services that started out in admin support roles on client services teams, so that can be a really good entryway. If it's planning you're interested in, it's a similar story in terms of the qualifications, but it would be kind of a junior strategy role, a junior planner role that you'd need to be looking out for that. I don't know, Laura or anyone from London Wildlife Trust, if you had any thoughts from the client side, if we've not covered that.
Yeah, I guess the main thing I'd add from working like in-house in an organisation, I suppose, is an obvious one to look out for would be either a marketing assistant or a comms assistant type role. What you can find though is quite often those can be quite hard to get because, or they don't come up all that frequently. There are quite a lot of organisations that often don't have the assistant kind of admin level role. So sometimes they tend to start out at officer role, which officer role does tend to require usually about a year's worth of experience or something along those lines. But what can be quite helpful, I wouldn't rule out necessarily, is you can get that year or two experience by doing something similar but related. So perhaps things like a sales admin role or all sorts of different roles in even slightly different industries. But if you're picking up a year or two's worth of experience where you're getting some, you know, experience in admin and organisation and those sorts of things that you can transfer over, but then they could help you secure a marketing officer role as long as you've got some experience possibly from another industry. So that can be a good route in as well. And also, I think sometimes having a look or thinking about industries that are sometimes not quite so popular, like third sector, media, things like that, tend to be quite competitive and quite high demand. And sometimes other industries that people aren't quite so excited about can be a good way to get in, get some experience, and then move you on to where you had your eye on later down the line. But yeah, I think that's the main thing I'd add. Don't know if anyone else wants to add to that.
Yeah, I thought I'd add, and it was kind of just to agree with absolutely with what you were saying, Lauren. I suppose a bit of my personal experience. I started my career as a kind of receptionist / admin assistant for an architecture practice, and kind of made myself really useful by the fact that I knew Photoshop and kind of could do a few more creative things like that. And they kind of, it was a small practice, so they identified, and then I could help them update the website because I was a little bit more digital savvy than some of the slightly older people working in the office. So I just suppose my takeaway from that would be to bring in all your different skills that you might be able to offer different practices and kind of weave your way in through that way. And then basically through me being useful, I then started to take on more kind of communications roles, doing more social media for them, which they hadn't even been doing at all. And then through me traversing through the architect world, I somehow ended up in the charity world. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is it's going to be a winding path, but make yourself as useful as you can. Bring as many skills that you can gain along the way through extra workshops or coming to things like this, and you'll find the way to where you want to be eventually. And you can do it, basically. I think you might be muted, Jamie.
Yeah. Our second question is for the London Wildlife Trust team. And the question is, what have you found are the best ways to involve young people in decision making?
I'm happy to answer this. Yeah, I think it's definitely been a journey for the trust that wanted to kind of explore this really through the Keeping It Wild project. And I think what we've learned really is it's important to have young people involved right from the start. So from the consultation and kind of planning stages of running a project, and also being involved in that kind of evaluation and feedback process as well, making sure that young people are being heard and that their opinions are being taken on board. So it's not just in a tokenistic way, but that things change as well, and making sure that young people have the access to the relevant and useful kind of training as well, so that they're kind of equipped with the skills required to aid in the decision-making processes, but also the confidence to do that as well. And I think from a LWT kind of perspective as well, it's important for us to be sort of investing in young people for the future as well. So this has been a really useful project to kind of really see how we can involve young people in kind of that collaborative process really. So it's been fantastic.
Great.
Anyone else want to, or are we moving on?
on to the next question. Yeah, so Eva would like to know from the Keeping It Wild team, what activities or things could I do as a sixth former to get experience or increase my chances to become a wildlife biologist, ecologist, or zoologist?
Thanks for the question, Eva. I'm happy to answer this one. So there's lots of things you could do, really. You could, first of all, kind of starting with kind of taking action in your local community, joining various kind of networks with other young people taking action for wildlife, and this will kind of help you build your knowledge and transferable skills and experience as well. Keeping thinking about kind of keeping a blog or a journal, and trying to keep up to date with sort of conservation news as well. There's lots of different sort of mailing lists and channels and platforms these days, which kind of give you a sort of daily digest or weekly digest of all the news happening within the conservation sector as well, and that will help you to kind of keep on top of everything that's kind of happening in the sector as well. And if it's possible for you, consider maybe doing some volunteering as well, just to kind of get a feel for it. So maybe a session at the weekend, if you can, if that's an option for you, just to get a kind of feel and flavour for what it's all about, and that will help you kind of understand whether it's something that you really enjoy as well, particularly on the sort of practical conservation side of things as well, and getting some of that experience on your belt.
I would also love to add, absolutely agree with everything Emily said, and also if you're ever taking on any additional extracurricular projects or work or anything like that, make sure you keep a list of all those things, because it's very easy to forget all the very many things you do throughout a course of a year or whatever. Make sure you keep a list of those things to keep on adding to and coming back to, so that then when you go to apply for a job, you've got it all there nicely in front of you, and you can refer back to it, no matter how small you might think this thing is. Whether you just attended an evening workshop like this, you can bring that in and weave that into your applications, and it will make you stand out from the crowd.
On to the next question. So this one's for Open and the London Wildlife Trust communications team. What are some ways that young people can learn and get experience in communication?
I think one of the great things about digital communications especially is that it's so much more democratic than other mediums. Like you can't go out there and run your own billboard campaign, but all of you can set up an Instagram, a Snapchat, a TikTok, and actually you can already, just as an individual, start to kind of communicate and grow your own audience. And that's a great tool, I think, for you guys to be learning. You guys are digital natives, you've grown up with this stuff, and that's a real advantage for you in the sector. The other thing I would do, like, you guys are also being, whether you realise it or not, you're being communicated to all the time. Like, I'd suggest maybe taking a little minute to reflect on those messages that you're being served, and think about why you're being marketed to them, and what, you know, what people are trying to communicate to you, what they're trying to say, and think about who's doing it well. Not everyone who sends you an advert on Instagram is doing a good job of it, so have a little think about who's doing it well, who isn't, and potentially look for opportunities to help those people who aren't. Like, you guys have a really unique perspective. Most people marketing to you are not young people. So actually, you know, if there's a local charity, a local organisation, a local business who's missing the mark, actually the thing you can do, can you approach them? You know, you can send anyone a message pretty much on Instagram nowadays. I don't want to put Nikita on the spot, but I'm pretty sure Nikita's been doing some volunteering in kind of digital channels with a local charity, and is actually now interviewing for paid jobs partly off the back of that too. So showing a little bit of entrepreneurship and putting yourself out there, I think, can't be overestimated.
I think, as well as kind of those really quite practical and creative solutions, as I'd expect from Rich, don't be afraid to kind of approach people for work experience as well, if that is an option that is available to you, and something that's accessible to you. I think that can be really valuable to get those skills kind of in a real environment. From a more kind of comms and communications as a discipline, I'd say that outside of kind of degrees and Chartered Institute courses, there's loads of free courses, paid for courses that are kind of shorter and a bit more accessible. So there are video tutorials for kind of different software. Google offers free training on its digital suite, which is kind of a really important part of the digital ad package. There's the General Assembly that offers free events and paid for courses. I've been to a couple and they're really, really valuable. If you're interested in the third sector, there's the Institute of Fundraising. Again, I've done one of their short courses, and that can be a really kind of good introduction to the charity sector. I didn't come from there. I haven't been in there my whole career, and it was really useful. And I'd also mention Course RA. So they're a brilliant kind of online learning organisation where you'll have lecturers from different universities around the world offering kind of free short courses. Challenging, so you are kind of getting something out of it, but it's yeah, it's kind of thinking about it a little bit differently, and it doesn't always have to be a really formal degree type route to kind of learn about these different topics that are relevant. Don't know if London Wildlife Trust have anything to add as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably most, I'd kind of echo what you guys said were the main things I would go for, like between anyone who's using social media a lot and has quite a decent following, you're already communicating a lot. So it's all, I guess, always thinking about what are the things that resonate more or work more, but you've probably got more experience in it already than you realise, and kind of thinking about why it's working. And yeah, I do think there's so many free short courses, webinars, things like that, and I wouldn't ever underestimate how useful those are, and pop them on your CV as well. I really do notice those on CVs when I'm looking at them. I'm not by any means looking for a full degree or anything like that, but someone who lists Google Analytics courses or things that they do, even if they're a short course, but the fact that someone's found it, taken the time to do it, and has done that off their own back, I would always look very well on. So those are the things I'd add, I think.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. So now for the next question is, what are the kinds of university courses focused on wildlife conservation, and what are the differences between them? For example, what's the difference between zoology, environmental science, and wildlife biology?
Yeah, happy to tackle this one. There are lots of different courses available, and on the surface it might feel a bit difficult to kind of distinguish between the difference between all of them. So for example, with university courses and those you listed, I think a lot of the time the difference lies in the types of modules that you can take, and most of the time there are crossovers between all of the different courses. So for example, so zoology is primarily focused on the study of animals, whereas something like wildlife biology is understanding more about animals and their environment and how they might be affected by it. The ecology course will focus more on kind of ecosystem side of things and how organisms interact with each other. And then lastly, something like kind of environmental science might be a bit broader and incorporates elements of earth sciences as well. But it's worth pointing out that uni courses aren't necessarily the only route as well. They're often quite theoretical and academic. If you're wanting something that's maybe a little bit more hands-on, it might also be worth exploring sort of other higher education kind of courses, so vocational courses, for example. Somewhere like Capel Manor College is a specialist environmental college, and they offer a range of environmental conservation and countryside management courses, which incorporate like an industry placement as well. So that's also worth considering, and also trying and seeking out kind of paid traineeship opportunities if at all possible as well. Hopefully seeing a little bit of a turn of a tide in the sector where there's a lot more awareness about the need for paid traineeship opportunities, and definitely within the Wildlife Trust. There's lots of different trusts at the moment trying to offer opportunities for young people at an entry level as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
So this question is for headliners. And yeah, so how do you think online projects can help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds and their mental well-being?
Hey, yeah. Hi everyone. So yeah, online projects, I think they give a lot of potential for kind of resources, information and learning that, especially this year we've seen like that, makes it a lot more kind of accessible and almost comfortable for young people to join and get involved with. When we think about access, obviously there are kind of, like, you'll need to have kind of kit and internet connections to get involved, but then it does also kind of break down some of those barriers of like traveling to places, which in itself can take a lot of time and might need some support or resources to do so. And online projects kind of bring all of that to your fingertips and to a place where you are kind of comfortable. You don't need to invest a lot of that time, a lot of that travel into getting there. It also kind of breaks down some of those barriers of the, I guess, thinking about mental well-being, the anxieties of going to a place and getting involved with something that might feel new, might feel very different, might feel very kind of something you've never really done before, something you're not sure is for you. And being online, you have that kind of comfort to the fact that you're usually you could be in a space where you are more comfortable. You're kind of behind a screen, so you can almost remove yourself if you need. You have that kind of the ability to kind of chat without kind of needing to speak, if that can be a stressful situation for you. We've worked with a lot of the young people in the Keeping It Wild project who, when lockdown hit, we started online and then we took it offline, and some of their responses and reflecting back on how we started online, a lot of them had said how it was so much more comfortable to start online, because it was that kind of comfort of just being in your own space. Not, you don't have that kind of one-to-one pressure or that pressure of kind of just meeting all these new people in a new place and doing new things. Yeah, so I think there's a level of access and comfort to online projects that can.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Oh, you're a bit quiet, Jason.
Thank you. Is this better? Yeah. Okay. So I have another question from April. This one is about, what are the key skills you need to develop to work in the industry, especially if you do not have or are not applying for a marketing degree?
I think the first thing I would say on this question is most people I know who work in marketing, including 90% of my colleagues, did not study marketing. So it's definitely not a prerequisite to work in the sector. I guess what everyone does have in common is an interest, potential interest in human behavior, why people do certain things and how we can change people's minds, change people's opinions. I think the other great thing from my perspective, like working in marketing, is actually like it exists across all sectors and markets. So you don't have to be passionate about marketing. You might be passionate about charities or wildlife or sports or technology, and actually in doing a marketing job in one of those sectors, you can do something you love every day. And I think having that energy and that enthusiasm for your sector will get you an awful long way, regardless of what you've studied or what else you've done.
And I think kind of from a really practical point of view, I think some key skills in marketing, kind of regardless of exactly where in marketing to develop are communication skills, relationship building. You'll always be working kind of in collaboration with partners, different departments. I think emotional intelligence, which might sound a little bit left field, but actually you will need to kind of be able to work together and kind of build that empathy and understanding. It's a key part of it. And critical thinking as well. I think whether you're kind of designing, you know, it's not, you've got to kind of like interpret a brief and take it from there. If we're in client services and we're looking at that, we've got to think about it. And I think at each point you need to be engaging on different levels. So critical thinking just generally is really important. I think it's also an industry where you're rarely working on one thing at a time. So organisation, multitasking skills are really, really valuable to have, especially in the client services side as well. And what I would say about that as well is that none of those skills have to come directly from marketing at the beginning of your career. They're definitely things that you can pick up in different roles and then transfer over.
Yeah, I think not much I'd say differently to that, but maybe, yeah, to kind of echo it and build on it a bit. But yeah, plenty of people, I don't know many people actually who've got specific marketing degrees. They often have experience from something else that they bring in. I guess the main thing I'd say, it's not exactly a skill, it's more of a kind of mindset and maybe thinking about things that you enjoy the most. But from people I've worked with who've worked in media and marketing and really enjoyed it, I'd say most of them have in common that they enjoy a job where it's very different day to day. And like Sarah says, you might be working on lots of things at the same time, kind of having that thing in your head to prioritize at that minute what thing you need to think about. So it does tend to suit someone who enjoys that way of working. Not everyone does. Some people much prefer to work much longer term, work on like 5-year long plans and things like that, where I find it's not quite as suited to, although that's not entirely true. Like marketing and comms is a very broad field. There are roles within it that are closer to project manager and things like that. So if you are more of that nature, there might be something that suits you, but it's just looking for the right thing, I think. But yeah, broadly, if one of your key skills is prioritizing and spinning lots of plates and moving quickly between different tasks on a day-to-day, then it may well suit you well. But yeah, that's it from me on that one.
Great, thank you. I hope that covers it.
Okay, so the next question is for Zara again at Headliners. Do you think the lockdown period significantly helped show how important online social action can be?
Yes, I think the lockdown period, both of them actually, I think especially the first one, it really highlighted how important social action can be, because it made people think in ways that they didn't need to before. Like projects that were running very physically, very kind of hands-on, had to go online. And it also highlighted a lot of issues that came with the lockdown, right? So like things like the rise in mental health, the kind of isolation, people living on their own and not being able to see people. And that kind of, I don't know, I guess it showed the power of like what you could do online. Because people had to be forced to kind of think of kind of transferring what they normally do to online. And you saw kind of loads of groups coming out of it and kind of networks forming, community groups, you know, just a lot of social action that was benefited by online and set up online and made to just be online because of the need for it.
Perfect. Yeah, so true. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
So, and the next question, this is for you guys at Keeping It Wild. How can you get fieldwork experience at a young age?
I'm happy to answer this. Yeah, again, similar in some of the question before about kind of what activities you do in kind of sixth form, really. So yeah, getting involved with local groups and networks to learn more kind of about natural history and kind of taking action in your local area. looking at things maybe like you do credible award and things like that, and tying it in with that. And thinking also in advance about, you know, potential your work experience placements as well. So some charities and environmental organisations may be able to facilitate this as well. So just keep that in your in back of your mind, and do try and plan ahead and leave as much time as possible to kind of secure that as well. Some organisations also enable young people to kind of volunteer under 16 as well. If you're accompanied by an adult, a kind of a parent or a guardian, for example. It depends from organisation to organisation what their kind of policy is around kind of volunteer age groups and things. Also just utilising that time to kind of build up your own personal knowledge as well of wildlife, and practicing your ID skills. There's also lots of free courses online as well. So people like the kind of Field Studies Council, they offer lots of free and also heavily subsidised identification courses as well, and just building up your knowledge, because it's such a rare skill these days. You see lots of applications come through, and that kind of that pure skill of kind of IDing wildlife and botany and things like that is such a rare skill. So that could really make you stand out if you're building up that knowledge from an early age as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's something I'm working on myself as well. So,
brilliant. I'm glad to hear
it.
One more question for Zara. Do you think social action projects are best when led by or partly led by the people it's directly targeted to?
100%. I think to have any kind of social action project, you have to have people who you're targeting in that kind of leadership role, because that's the only way that you would actually get those insights. You know, that's the only way you can actually find out kind of the experiences of kind of the groups, the people that you're targeting. You can really kind of get to what the real issues are and what like actual solutions would be, without having those people involved at those levels. It's hard to, like, I personally don't think you can get a successful outcome and a really meaningful kind of outcome from it. That kind of insight gives you things that you might not have even thought about. Because so like some of the work that I've done with the Keeping It Wild groups, when we've kind of spoken to young people, particularly around issues facing young people in nature, some of the answers, there was one particular one that was really just stood out to me so much. Of one of the young people said that embarrassment of feeling like you're the youngest person in the room when you're at a course or a lecture or a kind of a volunteer group or whatever. And that kind of small little detail there that you wouldn't really get if you didn't have that voice and that insight feeding into kind of the leadership of whatever action project you're working on. So I think if you didn't have that, it would be hard to get those meaningful kind of long-lasting results from it.
Nice, thank you. That's really interesting.
Thank you very much. And I think this is the final question before we go on to the open field. So this one is from Marie, and this question is: what are your top tips for creating content that will reach out to 14 to 19-year-olds?
Not to sound like a cop out or that you young people aren't special and unique, but to be honest, like we'd go about it the same way we would go about reaching any audience. Like we need to create content that is relevant, is timely, that offers value to their audience. An important thing to remember, I think, is we need to go to where our audience is. We shouldn't expect our audience to have to come to us. Obviously, the challenge with this is working out what is relevant and timely and unique to this young audience. At Open, we're lucky enough to have a planning and strategy team who some of you guys from the workshop will have met, and this is essentially their job, finding those insights. If you're not lucky enough to have a planning and strategy team at your beck and call, I would suggest talking to your audience. And like Zafra just said, like actually getting those insights from the young people themselves will be invaluable. Like, in fact, doing the workshops with you guys, where you guys were making ads essentially for yourselves, was super insightful, and the things you came up with were very different to what I would come up with, because you're making them for yourself. And things like audience panels and stuff, I know a lot of charities use. They might test messaging, test advertising, test marketing with an audience panel, and as long as that audience represents the people you want to go for, and there's no reason that couldn't be young people, I think that would be a great way to check that your content and your messaging is relevant. Smashed it.
Thanks, Richard. I'm wondering if any of our trainees on the panel have anything else to add to this, as our kind of younger members of the panel.
They're going to tell me I'm wrong, Violet.
Yeah, it was Richard right. Yeah.
I agree personally with Richard, because I think, especially when brands maybe try too hard to appeal to younger audiences, it comes across as quite obvious and cringy. And, you know, I think we do appreciate just more adult content anyway, and just things being straightforward.
I feel like maybe it would have been more different going back like 10, I don't know, now everyone's on the internet, like everyone's got a Facebook and Instagram, etc. Whereas I feel it was more split maybe 10 years ago, or it definitely was. But yeah, I agree with what Richard said.
Train them well. I think I don't know if it's relevant or not. An interesting thought young people tend to think of themselves and want to be older. Like Nikita just said, like, if you're marketing to a 14-year-old, you want to aim that older. You want to aim that to a 20-year-old, and they might like it. I can tell you now, as you get older, you're going to think you're much younger and cooler than you are. So you probably want to market younger to older people as well.
Great, thanks so much, everyone. So I'm just going to take a look at the Q&A box. I did see a question come through on there. Or if you have any other questions please pop them now in the Q&A box or the chat. You've got a very talented panel here, as you've heard from, so make the most out of asking them some more insights about their expertise, their experience. Let me have a look here. Oh, I think Emily's already answered all these questions.
I've answered, but if anyone wants to add anything as well. Marie in the chat also asked, do the participants have any ideas on how to run a campaign to appeal to their own age and demographic, which I guess we've just touched on in terms of the creating content that are reaching sort of this age bracket. And Lubna very kindly answered that in the chat as well. And we had another question of how did we engage with young people to start with. So I answered that. So some of the young people involved in this work and in the workshops as well have been involved in other areas of the Keeping It Wild project, which is a wider kind of youth engagement project that we run at the Trust in partnership with Headliners and London Youth, and also the John Muir Trust as well. And so we offer kind of paid traineeships, social action projects program, and action days and things like that for the age group of 11 to 25. And also our youth partners, London Youth and Headliners, supported with the recruitment to reach young people for this opportunity as well.
Great, thanks, Emily. So yeah, do pop your questions in. I could ask a question to my fellow panel members now whilst we're waiting for other questions to come in. I was thinking about asking the team at Open, now that you've worked on this project and you've had your young trainees working with you really closely for those 4 days, and also following on from the workshops where you engage with a wider group of people, is there anything from that experience that you're now going to take on, or that you kind of found that you learned that's maybe going to adjust the way you work, or just some kind of insights that you guys had from this project, from working with young people?
I think the first thing to say is, I hope it was super valuable to the young people doing the workshops, but it was definitely valuable to us too. Like the whole experience of the workshops and the work experience with the young guys, everybody at Open absolutely loved. Like it was hard work for sure. I think I slightly overworked everybody, but we got so much out of it, including like brilliant creative. One of our co-owners I think he was joking, one of our co-owners the other day, when he saw the results for the campaign, questioned how we could get more young people to come in and do work for us. Not only because obviously the experience was brilliant, but like the quality of the work that came out was fantastic as well. Like I don't think anybody would look at the work or see that work live on Facebook and think, oh, that was done by nine young people with not many, not a lot of experience in the sector. So I think the first thing I would say is how rewarding and exciting, and I was also tired as well after that week. But it was a great experience for us. I think as well, like we've done work experience before in the office, in real world. And one of my big worries before we started was, how the hell do we do this with 9 people online? So actually knowing, I mean, young people, feel free to tell me, and actually knowing we can work this way and engage young people in this way, I think has opened a lot of doors for us too. Because actually, we were probably thinking things like work experience weren't possible, and actually we've proved otherwise. So hopefully it'll be something we can do a lot more of going forward as well.
Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway again, as Rich said, was about the ability to move it online. I think, we'd probably got it down pat in the office, but it was really reassuring to see that we could kind of offer that structure. I think what was also unique to this that we might not have done before is that real focus on one project. And I think it offered a lot of really interesting learnings about working in that way, and the value that we can offer, I think, to show the end-to-end of a campaign and working on actual live work, and as Rich said, in that quite intense way. I've done that a few times with experienced teams, and it's always challenging and intense. So I think, yeah, it was a great experience, and everyone did amazingly.
Yeah, I think it would definitely change how we offer work experience going forward. So like usually it's a little bit of trying to find things for people to do and fitting them in, and a little bit of hand holding. I think a great thing with this project is we threw everybody very much in at the deep end, and everyone was fantastic and ran with it. But actually it was super rewarding, not just for the young people, but for Open as a company as well. Like doing work experience with a young person in a busy agency can be like a lot of work and a distraction from what we're meant to be doing. But I think combining the two together was like super reassuring. Like we put these poor 9 people in front of the client pretty much every day with a presentation, and they were fantastic at it. And I don't think I would hesitate to do that again. So it's probably changed how we think about even.
Thank you both. That's brilliant to hear.
Hi, yeah. I'd like to add, as one of the trainees as well, I felt that I'm not sure about what the others think, but I personally felt that the process it ran very smoothly. So I'm not sure if it was your first time doing this kind of work experience for young people, but yeah, it kind of felt like I was back at uni doing a small uni project, and you guys were my uni lecturers. but like in a very good way. And it was really fun. So yeah, thank you.
We've never done it with 9 people at the same time before. That was definitely new.
Yeah,
it was really, just to say again, yeah, it was really good. Everything that Jason said, I also think, and I was really surprised how I'd struggled to. I reckon we'd struggle to get the same amount of work done almost in a normal setting, just because we were always like just a quick message away from our team or the people at Open. In a way, like it felt more efficient than it would have been in person. Obviously, in person has its own benefits, but yeah, it worked super well online.
We have better snacks if it's in person, but yeah, the way of working was super intense, and if we did that in person, we'd call it a sprint or a rapid delivery, and we lock everyone in a room together. So you guys did very well to do that online.
Thank you.
And you all just started answering a question that we had from the Q&A box from Alia. But would anyone else like to chip in with something that they've learned from the experience, any other of the trainees, and how it's impacted what you want to do in the future? I don't know if anyone's got anything to say on that one.
Yeah, I don't know, it was really fun. Yeah, it's having like a proper insight into the industry, and just to kind of like, because I don't know, you have like an image of how things work from the outside, but you never know really, if that's actually what goes down. Yeah, so it was really cool seeing it from the inside, and it's just like super varied. That was good. I liked how varied it was, like dipping our toes into like lots of different bits. I didn't kind of expect to do quite so much creative stuff, so it was really nice. Yeah, having such a almost entirely having that all down to us trainees, and yeah, just confirmed that it is like a really exciting, fast-paced environment to be working in a good way. Fast-paced in a good way. I meant that.
Anyone else? Has it kind of changed maybe the thoughts about what you want to do in the future for your careers, or are you just now convinced that you want to go for this type of career? Or
well, I personally, I had just come out of doing a music degree, and obviously now with the situation that with COVID and everything, it's looking quite grim in that area, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and when I came across this the workshop, and then after that the workshop there was the trainee placement. I really enjoyed it. It was something that I had an inkling of interest in beforehand, but now like it really confirms that I really enjoyed the whole thing, and I am for sure interested in exploring more avenues of conservation and charity work. So for sure it has impacted what I may consider doing in the future.
And I'll add as well that I've always thought that I think opportunities out there are quite limited, and especially one where it's really short term and you just get to, for me, that this is an area that I want to go into. And I think it was really nice to be able to meet so many people from Open working in different areas. And even though it was virtual, I think you got a sense of like the culture, what people are like, and how fast paced it is, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I found it really exciting, and it's definitely made me want to go into this area more.
great, thank you everyone. I think we've just got one more question that's come in, and then we'll wrap up and let you all have a rest of your evening. So it's coming from Laura, who asks, the trainees in particular, what other opportunities would you like to see for young people relating to the combination of media and conservation? Are there any other kind of training opportunities or work opportunities you'd like to see coming out of the sector?
I can take this one if you guys don't mind. So earlier I talked about my experience and how in the beginning of our work placement, we got to see that there was different elements that made up digital marketing. So it just wasn't one individual who came up with an idea, created the copy, and then sent it off. There was a lot that goes into digital marketing. And I was really fascinated by it. So I know that some of the people at Open already talked about it. Client services is one area that would be really interesting to get involved in and have more experience in. The research that goes behind trying to figure out who your target audience is also another interesting element to it. And some ideas of also like public relations and like press releases. I think there's so many elements of digital marketing and just kind of communications in general. So it would be great to get more experience in it. I think that in the form we met. And so I feel like these are really invaluable experiences that have really helped me and kind of, like all of my other colleagues have said, have kind of made us go and consider a different route, or made us even consider digital marketing more seriously as well. I'm not sure if any of the other trainees want to pitch in and offer some advice or ideas.
As for like other placements that could be designed, I think, well, no, yeah, like more of the same, just even longer would be even better, I guess. Yeah, so yeah, I can't really think of many ways to improve it, to be honest. But like, yeah, maybe like a month-long placement doing a similar thing would be cool.
I agree.
Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone for all of your input. I think we've probably come to the end of our wonderful session. Thank you to all of the panelists, all of the attendees, all of my colleagues across this project. It's been so wonderful to see your work displayed and celebrated, and I feel like you should all feel super proud of yourself for this amazing work on this quite unique project. I feel like we can say it. So yeah, so thank you, and of course thank you to our funders for making it all possible. So we'd love for you all to stay in touch, follow the action on social media, following the hashtag Keeping It Wild. Here are our social media handles for London Wildlife Trust. And do check out the Keeping It Wild page on our website, where you can sign up for our Keeping It Wild newsletter, which my wonderful colleague Bobby now runs, and it's really wonderfully creative, insightful of different opportunities that she collates, people to follow on Instagram that are doing great things in the sector, and all sorts of kind of uplifting ways to connect with nature. So it's a really brilliant thing to sign up for and receive in your inbox every couple of weeks. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for joining us, and we will say goodbye.